Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson. Also, my BrightShine right here in the city of Memphis, County Sheriff State, Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, August the 3rd, 2025. Time 2:11 p.m. First, I thank my family, my support for you, team, encourage, want to continue to keep myself employed in Memphis, try to stay here, continue to further my education, my work out, and continue to pursue my social career, being Memphis, contract to my present time. I took a break from going to school. In the future, I'm gonna go back to school. And I'm going to earn my social degree as well as other degrees. Now, I'm starting my Facebook Live. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson. Also, on my right side, right here. I live right here in the city of Memphis. It's in the county sheriff of the state of Tennessee. And today's date is Sunday afternoon, August the 3rd, 2025. Time 2:12 p.m. First, I thank my family, my support for you, continue keep myself employed in Memphis, try to stay here and continue to further my education, my work online, continue to pursue my social needs and being Memphis contract in my present time. To break more school. In the future, I'm gonna go back to school. I'm gonna earn my social degree, well, other degrees. Now, we'll get right to it. Let me click over here. Now, of course, you know, we're utilizing Wikipedia, Encyclopedia Britannica, as well as other, you know, the dictionary, the library, all that. Now, we're gonna read right now from the Wikipedia, and of course, you know, Wikipedia, you know, you got your citations, but you know, Wikipedia is a quick reference, so you got citations and footnotes and notes. As well as references and, you know, things of this nature. Citation, you know, so but we're on prehistoric religion. Now make sure we don't forget, you know, take prehistory, and then get to religion. It's not religion prehistory. Religious prehistory is prehistoric religion. Now, I'm going to read this statement. I want to make sure you pay attention. Prehistoric religion is the religious practice of prehistoric cultures. Prehistory. The period. We're gonna touch on that too. We're going to touch on that too. That word period. Because we're dealing with time. Just like prehistory, we're dealing with time. Prehistory, the period before written records, makes up the bulk of human experience. Human experience. over 99% of human experience occurred during the Paleolithic. Pay attention. Pay attention. This is important. When you say Paleolithic, then you say Mesolithic and Neolithic. You're talking about the Old Stone Age, the Bronze Stone Age, and the Iron Age. So we're talking about the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. You're talking about time. During the Paleolithic period alone, prehistoric cultures spanned the globe and existed for over 2.5 million years. Their religious practices were many and varied, and the study of them is difficult due to the lack of written records describing the details of their faiths. Who are we talking about? Humans. See, we're being very specific. See, this was the PhD telling you. We're talking about prehistoric religion, prehistory. Now, we common sense creatures other than human. We're talking about prehistory. All right, now. I had to make sure now. I had to make sure. I don't want nobody to be like the chimpanzee or out there in the ocean or some of them dinosaurs or, you know, some of those creatures. We're talking about human. Make sure now. Let me make sure. I had to make sure. Yeah, because we know that a rat has a brain. We know that a snake has a brain. We know that dogs and cats, canines and felines have a brain. Yeah. Okay. I want to make sure now. Let me throw this out there now. If it's some insects, now we on Wikipedia now. We can refer. We can just do a quick reference, you know. But we just want to make sure that when we talking prehistory and history, talking and doing all these other things, because we as humans, we not the only one that's bipedal. We not the only ones that walk. Even a horse got 4 legs. A pig got 4 legs. Even a bird, the eagle, flying around, can dive from a mountain with his eyes and look way down in the river and grab a fish out the river from the mountaintop with his claws. Yeah, okay, so let's make sure we on the same level now. Make sure we on the same level now about brains. There's a lot of creatures that's got a brain. All right. So, let me just touch on that again. Prehistoric cultures. Cultures now. Cultures and customs. All right. Span the globe. Now, who gonna have culture? Okay, now I had to check sometime. I had to check sometime. Okay, cultures span the globe and existed for over 2.5 million years. Their religious practices were many and varied. And make sure now we talking about the Paleolithic, because you got the lower Paleolithic, middle Paleolithic, and upper Paleolithic. So we talking about the Paleolithic, and the Paleolithic is what? Also called the Old Stone Age. When we talking about Stone Age, we talking about what? It is a period in human prehistory that is distinguished by the original development of stone tools, and which represents almost the entire period of human prehistoric technology. All right? So that's what we're talking about. And the study of them is difficult due to the lack of written records. All right? Written records. All right? Describing the details of their faith. All right? Now, pay attention. Here we go. Now, like I said now, a lot of creatures have a brain. A lot of creatures have a brain. A lot. A lot of creatures have a brain. Do insects have a brain? Let me touch on that. Let me touch on that. Go click over there. Insect brain. Apparently, insects do have brains. Insect cognition. Oh, here we go. An insect cognition describes the mental capacity and study of those capacities in insects. Okay. Like I said, hey, a lot of creatures have a brain. That's all we want to touch on. That the insect also has a brain. All right. Now, the field developed from comparative psychology, where early studies focus more on animal behavior. That's all we want to touch on now. We ain't finna go all the way into this stuff now. Researchers have examined insect cognition in bees, fruit flies, and wasps. All right. Okay. Research questions consist of experiments aimed to evaluate insects' abilities such as perception, emotions, attention, memory, wasp, multipleness, spatial cognition, tool use, problem solving, and concepts. Unlike in animal behavior, the concept of group cognition plays a big part in insect studies. Okay. It is hypothesized some insect classes like ants and bees think with a group cognition to function within their society. More recent studies show that individual cognition exists and plays a role in overall group cognitive tasks. Insect cognition experiments have been more prevalent in the past decade than prior. It is logical for the understanding of cognitive capacities as adaptations to different ecological niches under the cognitive faculty by species when analyzing behaviors. This means viewing behaviors as adaptation to an individual environment and not weighing them more advanced when compared to other different individuals. So like I said, all we want to say is that yes, insects have a brain. We ain't going no further. Now so click back over. Only point we was making, there are many creatures that have a brain. So insects have brains. That's it. We ain't going no further. Now, we finna get into this. The cognitive. We're going to get that word. You just heard it, insect cognition. So, the cognitive capacity for religion likely first emerged in Homo sapiens sapiens, or anatomically modern humans. Although some scholars posit the existence of Neanderthal religion and sparse evidence exists for earlier ritual practice. Okay? I'm going to read a little more. Excluding sparse and controversial evidence in the Middle Paleolithic, that's like 300,000 to 50,000 years ago, religion emerged with certainty in the Upper Paleolithic around 50,000 years ago. Upper Paleolithic religion was possibly shamanic, oriented around the phenomenon of special spiritual leaders entering a trance state to receive esoteric spiritual knowledge. These practices are extrapolated based on the rich and complex body of art left behind by Paleolithic artists. So this was during the Paleolithic. These Paleolithic artists, particularly the elaborate cave art and enigmatic Venus figurines they produced. All right. Now, reason why I'm gonna read a little more, there's a distinction being made. We got Paleolithic, which old stone age, talking about the tools. Then you get into the Neolithic. So just like they were just talking about, lower Paleolithic, middle Paleolithic, and upper Paleolithic. The older is the lower Paleolithic. That's the oldest. Then you get to the middle. Then the upper. That's more recent. Then you get into, now in the middle, you have the Mesolithic. Then you get to the Neolithic. The Neolithic Revolution, which established agriculture. We're going from, in the Paleolithic, you got the hunter-gatherers that they touched on. So in the Paleolithic, the hunter-gatherers. Then you get to the Neolithic Revolution, which established agriculture as the dominant lifestyle. Occurred around 12,000 BC and ushered in the Neolithic. The Neolithic is saying this, the new Stone Age. We still dealing with stone tools, but it's a little more advanced. It is an archaeological period, the final division of the Stone Age in Mesopotamia, Asia, Europe, and Africa. It saw the Neolithic Revolution, a wide range set of developments that appear to have arisen independently in several parts of the world. Basically, just like they were talking about in Asia, Europe, and Africa. You have all this stuff. Human beings living in various locations, bringing in this Neolithic. Because you got what? The anatomically modern human. That's what they're talking about. See, during the Paleolithic, the old, in the lower, the archaic human, been around for years, for a long period of time. But at the same time, in the Paleolithic, came who? Homo sapiens sapiens also came on the scene in the Paleolithic. That's what they talking about. So when the anatomic modern human, and see, we got time today. We're going to get, I already got my notes. We're going to get, but we want to make sure we get the foundation and we continue to make sure that we don't overlook anything that the PhD is telling us. Pay attention to these words like period. Because we're talking about time. Just like when you say Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. What the PhD is teaching you is time. You're talking about old stone tools. Then you get the new stone tools. And so on and so forth. It's very important. Pay attention. See, this is one of the ways that the scientists keep up time. The Stone Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. It's those three. There's not no in the middle. The first age is the Stone Age. Then came after the Stone Age came the Bronze Age. We're talking about metallurgy. And after the Bronze Age came the Iron Age. That's another way of keeping time, of studying time. Just like when you say period. When you say Paleolithic, that's what they tell. Then they'll say Mesolithic. Then you'll hear the scientists say Neolithic. They studying time. All right, so where we at? All right, let me see. Okay. Venus figurines they produce. Okay. The Neolithic Revolution, which established agriculture. A completely, totally different change. Totally. You went from being hunter-gatherers. See, that's that cognition. You went from being a hunter and a gatherer. And remember, don't forget what the PhD told you now. These cultures did what? They spanned the globe. Now we're going to have to pay attention to this because we're talking about the earth. We're going to get on to that too. We got to get on there because archaic human went extinct. And so we got to get on this earth thing. We got to get on this time. But we got to get, we're establishing our base as human beings. We as humans. Because it's in our experience. It's our experience. This is what we as humans experience. Past, present, and in the future. Alright, so the Neolithic Revolution, which established agriculture as the dominant lifestyle, occurred around 12,000 BC and ushered in the Neolithic. Neolithic society grew hierarchical and inegalitarian compared to its Paleolithic forebears, and their religious practices likely changed to suit. Neolithic religion may have become more structural and centralized than in the Paleolithic, and possibly engaged in ancestor worship. Pay attention. Pay attention. We're not that far away. Pay attention. In ancestor worship, both of one's individual ancestors. Everybody ain't living in the same place. And of the ancestors of entire groups, tribes, and settlements. One famous feature of Neolithic religion were the stone circles of the British Isles, of which the best known today is Stonehenge, a particularly well-known area of late Neolithic through Chalcolithic religion. And then they're talking about the Chalcolithic, that's dealing with metallurgy. The Chalcolithic was an archaeological period characterized by the increasing use of smelted copper, dealing with metallurgy. Copper. It followed the Neolithic and preceded the Bronze Age. So it's like in the middle. it occurred at different periods in different areas, but was absent in some parts of the world, such as Russia, and that's the same thing that they were talking about. The period where about written records. Everybody didn't live in the same, any and everybody on this earth don't and didn't live in the same location. And so that was one of the things that they brought, that was highlighted, that's pointed out, is that when did prehistory end? When did prehistory end? Pay attention to what I'm saying. Prehistory. We talking about prehistory. Talking about before written records. So prehistory didn't end for any and everybody at the same time. That was a thing that was pointed out. We finna click over there, but I want to make sure we read this and point this information out. The stone. A particular well-known area of late Neolithic through Chalcolithic religion is Proto-Indo-European mythology, the religion of the people who first spoke the Proto-Indo-European language, which has been partially reconstructed through shared religious elements between early Indo-European language speakers. All right, and then you had a Bronze Age and Iron Age religions are understood in part through archaeological records, but also more so than Paleolithic and Neolithic through written records, prehistory. See, this is what they was talking about. When did prehistory end? That's what they talking about. That's what it means. Through written records. Some societies had writing in these ages and were able to describe those which did not. These eras of prehistoric religion see particular cultural focus today by modern reconstruction, with many pagan faiths today based on the pre-Christian practices of proto-historic Bronze and Iron Age societies. All right. All right, I'm gonna read a little more. Cause see, we gotta get that base. Prehistory. Let me touch on that right there. Let me put the curse on there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right. Cognition. Cognitive. Of, related to, or being conscious. Intellectual activity. As thinking, remembering, reasoning, or using language. Cognitive. Whoa, whoa. All right. Okay, cognition. The process of gaining knowledge through thought, experience, and the senses. Okay, cognition. The process of gaining knowledge through thought, experience, and the senses. All right. All right, we over here on Wikipedia. Cognition. Now let's read this. Cognition refers to the broad set of mental processes that relate to acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. It encompasses all aspects of intellectual functions and process such as perception, attention, thought, imagination, intelligence, the formation of knowledge, memory, and working memory, judgment, and evaluation, reasoning and computation, problem solving, and decision making, comprehension, and production of language. Cognitive processes use existing knowledge to discover new knowledge. All right. So, all right, we still over here on prehistory. Now we down here where it says background because we gonna click over, but we gonna read this little background here. Prehistory is the period in human history. See that? So you pay attention when you hear it. Prehistory is the period in human history before written records. The lack of written evidence demands the use of archaeological evidence, which makes it difficult to extrapolate conclusive statements about religious belief. Much of the study of prehistoric religion is based on inferences from historic, textual, and ethnographic evidence. For example, analogies between the religion of Paleolithic and modern hunter-gatherer societies. The usefulness of analogy in archaeological reasoning is theoretically complex and contested, but in the context of prehistoric religion can be strengthened by circumstantial evidence. For instance, it has been observed that red ochre was significant to many prehistoric societies and to modern hunter-gatherers. Religion exists in all known human societies. But the study of prehistoric religion was only popularized around the end of the 19th century. A founder effect, put your cursor on there. A founder effect. In population genetics, the founder effect is the loss of genetic variation that occurs when a new population is established by a very small number of individuals from a larger population. A founder effect in prehistoric archaeology, a field pioneered by 19th century secular humanists who found religion a threat to their evolution-based field of study, may have impeded the early attribution of a religious motive to prehistoric humans. Prehistoric religion differs from the religious format known to most 21st century commentators based around orthodox belief and scriptural study. Rather, prehistoric religion, like later hunter-gatherer religion, possibly drew from shamanism and ecstatic experience, as well as animism. Now let me put the cursor on this. I want you to pay attention to the word. I want you to hear this word. Shamanism is a spiritual what? Is a spiritual what? Spiritual practice that involves a practitioner, shaman, interacting with the spirits what? Spirit what? Spirit what? Spirit world through altered states of consciousness such as trance. All right. I want you to hear that word, spirit, spiritual. All right. And ecstatic experience, as well as what? Animism. All right. Animism is what? Is the belief that objects, places, and creatures all possess a distinct spirit. What? Spiritual what? Spiritual essence. Animism perceives all things, animals, plants, rocks, rivers, weather, sin, human handiwork, and in some cases words, as being animated. Having agency and free will. Through analysis, indicate animism may have emerged earlier. Though the nature of prehistoric religion is so speculative, the evidence left in the archaeological record is strongly suggestive of a visionary framework where faith is practiced through entering trances, personal experience with deities, and other hallmarks of shamanism, to the point of some authors suggesting in the words of archaeologists of shamanism, Neil Price, that these tendencies and techniques are in some way hardwired into the human mind. Now, I'm still over here we on Wikipedia, and I was looking. Okay, we still over here on prehistoric religion. I haven't clicked over. Now they dealing with up under background. They started talking about human evolution. I don't want to spend too much time reading over here because we're gonna click over to prehistoric to prehistory. And it's going to still get to the same, basically. So we're going to click back. All right, so I clicked over here on prehistory. Then we're going to click back over to the human evolution. All right, we're on prehistory, also called pre-literary history, is the period of human history between the first known use of stone tools. Oh yeah, we're going to definitely have to click back because they saying something. The first known use of stone tools by who? Hominins. And when they say hominins, be careful. Don't get confused. Because when you say hominins, that's a taxonomic, former taxonomic tribe of the subfamily homininae. Homininans. They comprise two extinct genera. Homo, humans, and who else? And pan. And in standard use, exclude the genus gorilla, which is grouped separately within the subfamily Homininae. So we're talking about hominins. So when you say a hominin used stone, I want you to pick up on something. I want you to catch what they said. Catch what he said. It's the period of human history, okay, between the first known use of stone tools by who? Hominins. When you say hominins, hominini, that didn't exclude the chimp. Because don't forget now, when you start talking about the hominins and the Australopithecus, was a hunter-gatherer. So make sure you pay attention to what the PhD said. Prehistory is also called pre-literary history, is the period of human history. Human history, and that is human history, between the first known use of stone tools by hominins 3.3 million years ago, and the beginning of recorded history. With the invention of writing systems, the use of symbols, marks, and images appeared very early among humans. But the earliest known writing system appeared 5,200 years ago. It took thousands of years for writing systems to be widely adopted, with writing having spread to almost all cultures by the 19th century. The end of prehistory therefore came at different times, in different places, in a term less often used in discussing society where prehistory ended relatively recently. It is based on an old conception of history that without written records, there could be no history. The most common conception today is that history is based on evidence. However, the concept of prehistory has not been completely discarded. In the early Bronze Age, Sumer in Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley civilization, and ancient Egypt were the first civilization to develop their own scripts and keep historical records, with their neighbors following. Most other civilizations reached their end of prehistory during the following Iron Age. The three-age division of prehistory into Stone Age, Bronze Age, and Iron Age remains in use for much of Eurasia and North Africa, but is not generally used in those parts of the world where the working of hard metals arrived abruptly from contact with Eurasian culture, such as Oceania, Australasia, much of sub-Saharan Africa, and parts of the Americas, with some exceptions in pre-Columbian civilization in the Americas. These areas did not develop writing systems before the arrival of Eurasians, so their prehistory reaches into relatively recent periods. For example, 1788 is usually taken as the end of the prehistory of Australia. The period when a culture is written about by others but has not developed its own writing system is often known as the proto-history of the culture. By definition, there are no written records from human prehistory, which can only be known from material, archaeological, and anthropological evidence, prehistoric materials, and human remains that were at first understood by the collection of folklore and by analogy with pre-literate societies observed in modern times. The key step to understanding prehistoric evidence is dating, and reliable dating techniques have developed steadily since the 19th century. The most common of these dating techniques is radiocarbon dating. Further evidence has come from the reconstruction of ancient spoken languages. More recent techniques include forensic chemical analysis to reveal the use and provenance of materials, and genetic analysis of bones to determine kinship and physical characteristics of prehistoric peoples. All right, I'm gonna click over to this evolution. So that's what we want to get to. We want to get to the point where we can get to these earth sciences, because evolution is very important. We're talking about the hominins and everything. So we got to get into these earth sciences about time. How old is the earth? Think about 13.89 billion. It's in the billions. Billion of years old. Then we get into the origin of life, abiogenesis, and then we get the history of life. We had the origin of life timeline. You understand? We had human evolution and the timeline of human evolution. We got to get into all that. All right, human evolution. A question when religion emerged in the evolving psyche has sparked the curiosity of paleontologists for decades. On the whole, neither the archaeological record nor the current understanding of how human intelligence evolved suggests early hominins. All right, we got to click on that. Hominini. Now, hominini form a taxonomic tribe of the subfamily Homininae. They comprise two extant genera, Homo, humans, and Pan, chimpanzees and bonobos. And in standard use exclude the genus gorillas, which is grouped separately within the subfamily Homininae. All right. Let me click back over. Now, neither the archaeological record nor the current understanding of how human intelligence evolved suggests early hominins had cognitive capacity for spiritual belief. Religion was certainly present during the Upper Paleolithic period, dating to about 50,000 through 12,000 years ago, while religion in the Lower and Middle Paleolithic belongs to realm of legend. In early research, Australopithecus, the first hominins to emerge in the fossil record. Australopithecus. Is a genus when they say genus, is a taxonomic rank above species and below family as used in the biological classification of living and fossil organisms as well as viruses. And so, of early hominins that existed in Africa during the Pliocene, we're going to get to, see, that's the reason why we got to get to the earth science. See, there's a lot of information about creatures on this earth during, and see, he existed in Africa during the Pliocene and early Pleistocene. The genera Homo, which include modern humans, Paranthropus, and Kenyanthropus, evolved from some Australopithecus species. You hear that? That's where Paranthropus and Kenyanthropus evolved from Australopithecus species. Australopithecus is a member of the subtribe Australopithecine. Now he's a subtribe of Australopithecine, which sometimes also includes Ardipithecus, though the term Australopithecine is sometimes used to refer only to members of Australopithecus. Species include Australopithecus garthi, Australopithecus africanus, Australopithecus sedibe, Australopithecus afarensis, Australopithecus anamensis, Australopithecus baragazali, and what's the other one? Australopithecus diarrhea. And debate, they have a lot of debates, exist to whether some Australopithecus species should be reclassified into new genera, or if Paranthropus and Kenyanthropus are synonymous with Australopithecus, in part because of the taxonomic inconsistency. All right, let me see here. All right. Now, when you scroll down, when they talk about this Australopithecus, and when they talk about the taxonomy, and then classification, you have to make sure you know what they're trying to say, what the scientists are saying about what they found, and about evolution. They're classifying it as a human, as being, human. However, the physical characteristics, because he wasn't a chimp. That's what they tell you. They couldn't say he was a chimp. They couldn't say that Australopithecus was a chimp or bonobo. That's what they tell you. He was an early ancestor to anatomically modern human. You see, when you over here on this Australopithecus, then you deal with the taxonomy, and they saying the one that they found, the fossil evidence that they found, and it's saying, okay, the taxonomy. The first Australopithecus specimen, the type specimen, was discovered in 1924 in a lime quarry by workers at Taon, South Africa. The specimen was studied by the Australian anatomist Raymond Darwin, who was then working at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. The fossil skull was from a 3-year-old bipedal primate, nicknamed Tongue Child, that he named Australopithecus africanus. See, they're trying to tell you that they know that it's not a chimp. He's not a bonobo. But he's some kind of homo. See what I'm talking about? See, they trying to tell you that when they found the fossils, and when they studied the fossils, they didn't even waste time. They did the study, and they were like, well, it's not a chimp. It ain't a bonobo. It ain't no gorilla. It ain't no orangutan. So he human. He a hominin. The fossil skull was from a 3-year-old bipedal primate, nicknamed Tongue Child, that he named Australopithecus africanus. The first report published in Nature February 1925, Dark realized that the fossil contained a number of humanoid features. And so he came to the conclusion that this was an early human ancestor. Later, Scottish paleontologist Robert Broom and Dark set out to search for more early hominin specimens and several more Australopithecus africanus remains from various sites. Initially, anthropologists were largely hostile to the idea that these discoveries were anything but apes, though this changed during the late 1940s. In 1950, evolutionary biologist Ernst Walter Mayer said that all bipedal apes should be classified into the genus Homo and consider renaming Australopithecus to Homo transvalensis. However, the contrary view taken by J.T. Robinson in 1954 excluded Australopiths from Homo. became the prevalent view. The first Australopithecine fossil discovered in eastern Africa was an abscissa skull excavated by Mary Leakey in 1959 in Odove Gorge, Tanzania. Since then, the Leakey family has continued to excavate the gorge, uncovering further evidence for Australopithecines, as well as for Homo habilis. And who is Homo habilis? Is an extinct species of archaic human from the early Pleistocene of East and South Africa, about 2.4 million years ago to 1.65 million years ago. And Homo erectus. Homo erectus is an extinct species of archaic human from the Pleistocene. We're going there. Spanning nearly 2 million years, is the first human species to evolve a human-like body, plan, and gait to leave Africa and colonize Asia and Europe. The scientific community took 20 more years to widely accept Australopithecus as a member of the human family tree. And it said also in 1997, the almost complete Australopithecus skeleton with skull was found in the Sturkfontein caves of Gauteng, South Africa. It is now called Littlefoot and is about 3.7 million years old. It was named Australopithecus prometheus, which has since been placed within Australopithecus africanus. Other fossil remains found in the same cave in 2008 were named Australopithecus sediba, which lived 1.9 million years ago. Australopithecus africanus probably evolved into Australopithecus sediba, which some scientists think may have evolved into Homo erectus, though this is heavily disputed. Now, in 2003, Spanish writer Camilo Jose Cela Conde and evolutionary biologist Francisco J. Ayala proposed resurrecting the genus Paranthropus to house Ororan, Australopithecus afarensis, Australopithecus anamensis, and Australopithecus Barrel Ghazali and Australopithecus garthi, but this genus has been largely dismissed. Okay. Classification. Alright, with the apparent emergence of the general homo, Kenanthropus and Paranthropus is the genus Australopithecus. Into some development name species. Okay, let me see here. All right. Let's see. Okay. Now, when you be over here on, I'm just gonna say this. When you be over here on Australopithecus, and then when you scroll down like taxonomy, then you'll see classification, and then you'll see evolution. That's what we want. All right. Now we see the classification. We're talking about Homo and Kenanthropus and Paranthropus in the genus Australopithecus. Now let's get to evolution. Now they got this hominin timeline. But like I said, when it comes to evolution, we're going to touch on it, then we're going to click over. All right. When it's saying evolution, it's saying that Australopithecus and the Mrs. may have descended from or was closely related to Australopithecus romanitas. Australopithecus anamensis shows some similarities to both Australopithecus romanitas and Sahelanthropus. Australopiths share several traits with modern apes and humans. So they was like, you got some of these ape-like stuff and some of this human stuff. And they were widespread throughout eastern and northern Africa about 3.5 million years ago. The earliest evidence of fundamentally bipedal hominins is a fossil trackway in Letoli, Tanzania, which bears a remarkable similarity to those of modern humans. The footprints have generally been classified as Australopith, as they are the only form of pre-human hominins known to have existed in that region at that time. According to the Chimpanzee Genome Project, the human chimpanzee last common ancestor existed about 5 to 6 million years ago, assuming a constant rate of mutation. However, hominin species dated to earlier than the date could call this into question. Sahelanthropus chadensis, commonly called Tome, is about 7 million years old, and Oroman tugenensis lived at least 6 million years ago. Since little is known of them, they remain controversial among the scientists, since the molecular clock in humans has determined that humans and chimpanzees had a genetic split at least a million years later. One theory suggests the human and chimpanzee lineage diverged somewhat at first, then some population interbred around 1 million years after divergence. Now, the anatomy. The brains of most species of Australopithecus were roughly 35% of the size of a modern human brain, with an endocranial volume average of 4.66 cc. Although this is more than the average endocranial volume of chimpanzee brains at 360 cc, 22 cubic inches. The earliest Australopithecus anamensis appear to have been within the chimpanzee range, whereas some later Australopith specimens have a larger endocranial volume than that of some early Homo fossils. Most species of Australopithecus were diminutive and gracile, usually standing 1.2 to 1.4 meters, around 3 feet 11 inches to 4 feet 7 inches. It is possible that they exhibited a considerable degree of sexual dimorphism, males being larger than females. In modern population, males are on average a mere 15% larger than females, while in Australopithecus, males could be up to 50% larger than females by some estimates. However, the degree of sexual dimorphism is debated due to the fragmentary nature of Australopith remains. One paper finds that Australopithecus afarensis had a level of dimorphism close to modern humans. According to A. Zeman, Australopithecus body proportions closely resemble those of bonobos. Leading evolutionary biologist Jeremy Griffith to suggest that bonobos may be phenotypically similar to Australopithecus. Furthermore, thermoregulatory models suggest that Australopiths were fully hair covered, more like chimpanzees and bonobos. And unlike humans, and unlike humans. And the fossil record seems to indicate that Australopithecus is ancestral to Homo and modern humans. It was once assumed that large brain size had been a precursor to bipedalism, but the discovery of Australopithecus with a small brain but developed bipedality upset this theory. Nonetheless, it remains a matter of controversy as to how bipedalism first emerged. The advantages of bipedalism were that it left the hands free to grasp objects, carry food and young, and allowed the eyes to look over tall grasses for possible food sources or predators. But it is also argued that these advantages were not significant enough to cause the emergence of bipedalism. Earlier fossils, such as Auroran togenesis, indicate bipedalism. Around 6 million years ago, around the time of the split between humans and chimpanzees, indicated by genetic studies. This suggests that erect, straight-legged walking originated as an adaptation to free dwelling. Major changes to the pelvis and feet had already taken place before Australopithecus. It was once thought that humans descended from a knuckle walking ancestor, but this is not well supported. Australopithecines have 32 teeth like modern humans. Their molars were parallel like those of gray apes, and they had a slight pre-canine gap. That's sternal. Diastema. Their canines were smaller, like modern humans, and with the teeth less interlocked than in previous hominids. In fact, in some Australopithecines, the canines are shaped more like incisors. The molars of Australopithecus fit together in much the same way those of humans do, with low crowns and 4 low rounded cusps used for crushing. They have cutting edges on the crest. However, Australopiths generally evolve a large post-canine dentition with thicker enamel. Australopiths in general had thick enamel, like Homo, while other great apes had markedly thinner enamel. Robust Australopiths wore their bone surfaces down flat, unlike the more gracile species who kept their crest. So that's the that's the Australopithecus. All right, let's see here. Okay, so let's click over here. Let me click back over here. Let's see. Let's see. Now, all right, we were talking about these different periods. For example, like the hominin timeline. And when you talk about the hominin timeline and evolution, you have the Miocene, you have the Pliocene, and you have the Pleistocene. Now, when we talking about all this, we talking about the geological talking about the Miocene, Pliocene, Pleistocene, and according to the International Union of Geological Sciences. Now we talk about earth science. Earth science or geoscience includes all fields of natural science. Put the curse on that. Now, related to the planet Earth. Now again, earth science or geoscience includes all fields of natural science related to the planet Earth. This is a branch of science dealing with the physical, chemical, and biological complex constitutions and synergistic linkages of Earth's four spheres: the biosphere, the hydrosphere / cryosphere, the atmosphere, and a geosphere or lithosphere. Earth science can be considered to be a branch of planetary science, but with a much older history. And so, right, let me. All right, that's what we were looking for. We were looking for the geological time scale. Now, the geological time scale, or geological time scale. Geologic time scale or geological time scale is a representation of time based on the rock record of Earth. It is a system of chronological dating that uses chronostratigraphy, the process of relating strata to time. And what is strata? Strata is, in geology and related fields, a stratum is a layer of rock or sediment characterized by certain lithologic properties or attributes that distinguish it from adjacent layers from which it is separated by visible surfaces known as either bedding surfaces or bedding planes. And geochronology, a scientific branch of geology that aims to determine the age of rocks. And is used primarily by earth sciences, including geologists, paleontologists, geophysicists, geochemists, and paleoclimatologists to describe the time and relationship of events in geological history. The time scale has been developed through the study of rock layers and the observation of their relationship and identifying features such as lithologies and paleomagnetic properties and fossils. let me see. Like we was talking about when we was talking about these words on a geological time scale, you can scroll down and you will see the divisions of geologic time. And when we was talking about okay, let me see, eon is the largest chronological time unit and is equivalent to a chronostratigraphic enneatheum. There are 4 formally defined eons: the Hadean, Archean, Proterozoic, and Phanerozoic. An era is the second largest geochronologic time unit and is equivalent to a chronostratigraphic enneatheum. There are 10 defined eras. Okay. Period. A period is equivalent to a chronostratigraphic system. There are 22 defined periods, with the current being the quaternary. So we're in the quaternary. We're in the quaternary period right now. As an exception, 2 sub-periods are used for the Carboniferous period. An epoch is the second smallest geochronologic unit. It is equivalent to a chronostratigraphic series. There are 37 defined epochs and 1 informal one. The current epoch is the Holocene. There are also 11 sub-epochs, which are all within the Neogene and Quaternary. The use of sub-epochs as formal units in international chronostratigraphy was ratified in 2022. And age is the smallest hierarchical geochronologic unit. It is equivalent to a chronostratigraphic stage. There are 96 formal and 5 informal ages. The current age is a megahelene. A chrone is a non-hierarchical formal geochronology unit of unspecified rank and is equivalent to a chronostratigraphic chronozone. me see. What we're talking about is time. The origin of life, or in scientific, abiogenesis. The history of life. There's a timeline of the evolutionary history of life. Human evolution. The timeline of human evolution. Now we looking at something. We're gonna look at this geological time. Now, before they had them, we talking about the Miocene, and then the Pliocene, then the Pleistocene. But before the Miocene, you had the Oligocene. And the Oligocene is a geologic epoch of the Paleogene period that extends from about 33.9 million to 23 million years before the present. As with other older geological periods, the rock beds that define the epoch are well identified, but the exact dates of the start and end of the epoch are slightly uncertain. All right. And before the Oligocene is preceded by the Eocene epoch, and it's followed by the Miocene. So before the Oligocene, you had the Eocene, and after the Oligocene, you had the Miocene. Now, for example, during the Oligocene epoch, the continents continued to drift toward their present positions. Antarctica became more isolated as deep ocean channels were established between Antarctica and Australia and South America. Australia had been very slowly drifting away from West Antarctica since the Jurassic, but the exact time of the establishment of ocean channels between the two continents remains uncertain. However, one estimate is that a deep channel was in place between the two continents by the end of the early Oligocene. The timing of the formation of the Drake Passage between South America and Antarctica is also uncertain. Let me scroll down a little bit. All right, let me see. The climate. The climate during the Oligocene reflected a general cooling trend following the early Eocene climatic optimum. This transformed the Earth's climate from a greenhouse to an icehouse climate. All right, let me see. So then, All right, the Oligocene sees the beginnings of modern ocean circulation, with tectonic shifts causing the opening and closing of ocean gateways. Cooling of the oceans had already commenced by the Eocene in the Oligocene boundary, and they continued to cool as the Oligocene progressed. The formation of permanent Antarctic ice sheets during the early Oligocene and possible glacial activity in the Arctic may have influenced this oceanic cooling, though the extent of this influence is still a matter of some significant dispute. All right, let's click on over here to the Miocene. The Miocene is the first geological epoch of the Neogene period, and extends from about 23.3 to 5.3, 333 million years ago. The Miocene, hold on. As Earth went from the Oligocene through the Miocene and to the Pliocene, the climate slowly cooled toward a series of ice ages. The Miocene boundaries are not marked by distinct global events, but by regionally defined transition from the warmer Oligocene to the cooler Pliocene epoch. And it's saying during the early Miocene, Afro-Arabia collided with Eurasia, severing the connection between the Mediterranean and Indian Oceans and enabling the interchange of fauna between the continents, including the dispersal of proboscideans, them elephants, and hominoids, the apes, the old world, that are native to sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. Apes are more closely related to old world monkeys. So them the hominoids into Eurasia during the late Miocene. The connections between the Atlantic and Mediterranean closed, caused the Mediterranean Sea to almost completely evaporate. This event is referred to as the Messinian salinity crisis. Then at the Miocene-Pliocene boundary, the Strait of Gibraltar opened and the Mediterranean refilled. That event is referred to as the Zanclean flood. Also during the early Miocene, the apes first evolved, began diversifying, and became widespread throughout the old world. Around the end of this epoch, the ancestors of humans had split away from the ancestors of the chimpanzees and had begun following their own evolutionary path during the final Messinian stage of the Miocene. Continents continue to drift toward their present positions of the modern geological features. Only the land bridge between South America and North America was absent. Although South America was approaching the western subduction zone in the Pacific Ocean, causing both the rise of the Andes in the southward extension of the Mesoamerican Peninsula. When it comes to the climate, climates remain moderately warm, although the slow global cooling that eventually led to the Pleistocene glaciations continued. Although a long-term cooling trend was well underway, there is evidence of a warm period during the Miocene when the global climate rivaled that of the Oligocene. Life during the Miocene epoch was mostly supported by the two newly formed biomes, kept forests and grasslands. Grassland allowed for more grazers such as horses, rhinoceros, and hippos. 95% of modern plants existed by the end of this epoch. Modern bony fish genera were established. A modern style latitudinal biodiversity gradient appeared. When it comes to flora, the co-evolution of gritty, fibrous, fire-tolerant grasses and long-legged gregarious ungulates with high-crowned teeth led to a major expansion of grass grazer ecosystems. Herds of large, swift grazers were hunted by predators across broad sweeps of open grassland, displacing desert, woodland, and browsers. Hmm. Okay, let me see here. Earliest. Okay, that's one of them. Let me see. Species. Okay. Okay. Now, when we looking at here, we over in the Miocene, and we looking at this hominin timeline. And when you see Australopithecus, they call him. You have this Ardipithecus ramidus. He a species. Is a species of Australopithecine from the far region of early Pliocene Ethiopia. Now pay attention. Now he a species. Now the one coming after him, Ardipithecus, is a genus of an extinct hominin that lived during the late Miocene and early Pliocene epochs in the far depression of Ethiopia, originally described as one of the earliest ancestors of the humans after they diverged from the chimpanzee. So you see, that's what we was trying. That's what we were trying to get to. When we talk about this archaic human, the archaic human had to have an ancestor who wasn't necessarily a chimp, but wasn't all the way human either. So he was like in the middle. That's what this is. That's what that is. The Australopithecus. Then you have Australopithecus anamensis, is a hominin species. Then there's another one. Australopithecus afarensis is an extinct species of Australopithecine. Then you got Australopithecus africanus, is an extinct species of Australopithecine. Then you get the earliest sign of Homo, Australopithecus. Because you get the Australopithecus right here, but then you have the earliest sign of Australopithecus. So Australopithecus had ancestors. That's what they're trying to tell you. And that Australopithecus, he also had stone tools. Then when you get the early signs of Homo, you get Australopithecus garthi, is a species of Australopithecine. Then you get Homo rudolfensis, he human. That's one of the archaic humans. So it was a process of evolution. That's what they tell you. It was a process of human to get to the archaic human. And then, see, this is what the timeline is showing. Is when you get to Homo habilis, he is human. He the archaic human. He human. Homo rudolfensis, is human. He's archaic human. The one before him, Australopithecus guy, is an ancestor. That's the ancestor. And then you start seeing this coming out of Africa. Homo habilis, archaic human. Australopithecus sediba. Homo ergaster, archaic human. Homo intercessor, archaic human. Then you get the Homo erectus, archaic human. And left Africa. Like I said, we over here on the we on the Miocene. Yeah, we on the Miocene. See, this is what's happening in the Miocene. The climate is very important. You see all this evolution taking place, and it's taking place during the Miocene. And before it was the Miocene, it was the Eocene. Yeah. The Eogene. The Oligocene. That would cause all this. That's how the apes came about during these before the Miocene. You got to go back to the Oligocene and some other. That's when the primates. And then during the Miocene, then you had this evolutionary process to where we are today, the humans. You're going from the Miocene, then to the Pliocene, then you get to the Pleistocene, when you start seeing Homo sapiens. So the climate is very important. Because when we talk about the hunter-gatherers in the Pleistocene, because we got past the Pliocene, that's when Australopithecus in the Pliocene. But when you get to the Pleistocene, you start seeing Homo. But see, it's very important to understand the climate. We're talking about the continents and things of this nature. In order to be a hunter-gatherer in the Pleistocene, pay attention to what's around, the fauna and the flora. You're going to be a hunter. What kind of fauna is alive? How is it that going to be a hunter and a gatherer? Exactly what kind of animals, fauna to hunt in the Pleistocene, and to be a gatherer in the Pleistocene. Because see, some of the fauna and flora went extinct, then was replaced by some other creation. See, it's very important to understand what's going on the earth. The continents were moving, still moving. All right, the Pliocene. The climate. All right, let's click over to the Pliocene. The climate during the Pliocene epoch. The Earth's climate became cooler and drier, as well as more seasonal, making a transition between the relatively warm Miocene to the cooler Pleistocene. However, the beginning of the Pliocene was marked by an increase in global temperatures relative to the cooler Mycenaean. During the Pliocene, they're talking about paleography. Continents continue to drift, moving from positions possibly as far as 250 kilometers from their present location to positions only 70 kilometers from their current location. South America became linked to North America through the Isthmus of Panama during the Pliocene, making possible the Great American Interchange and bringing a nearly complete end to South America's distinctive native ungulate fauna. Those other South American lineages linked as predatory mammals were already extinct. They were already extinct by this point, and others like xenothrans continue to do well afterward. All right. Africa's collision with Europe formed the Mediterranean Sea, cutting off the remnants of the treacherous ocean. The border between the Miocene and the Pliocene is also the time of the Mycenaean salinity crisis. The land bridge between Alaska and Siberia was first flooded near the start of the Pliocene, allowing marine organisms to spread between the Arctic and Pacific Oceans. The bridge would continue to be periodically flooded and restored thereafter. The environment and evolution of human ancestors. The Pliocene is bookended by two significant events in the evolution of human ancestors. The first is the appearance of the hominin, Australopithecus anamensis, in the early Pliocene, around 4.2 million years ago. The second is the appearance of Homo, the genus that includes modern humans and their close extinct relatives, near the end of the Pliocene, 2.6 million years ago. It says that key traits that evolved among hominids during the Pliocene include terrestrial bipedality, and by the end of the Pliocene, encephalized brains with a large neocortex relative to body mass, and stone tube manufacture. It's in the three-toed horses, they became extinct. And became extinct, but other carnivores, including the weasel family, that diversified, and dogs and short-faced bears did well. Ground sloths. Let me see. The primate distribution declined in Eurasia. Africa was dominated by hoofed animals, and primates continued their evolution with Australopithecines, some of the first hominids, and baboon-like monkeys appearing in the late Pliocene. Now, let me see what was it? Pliocene. Now, the Pleistocene. Then we get to the Pleistocene. At the end of the Pliocene, the previously isolated North and South American continents were joined by the Isthmus of Panama, causing a faunal interchange between the two regions and changing ocean circulation patterns with the onset of glaciation in the northern hemisphere. And then During the early Pleistocene, archaic humans of the genus Homo originated in Africa and spread throughout Afro-Eurasia. The end of the early Pleistocene marked by the mid-Pleistocene transition with the cyclicity of glacial cycles changing. And then the late Pleistocene witnessed the spread of modern humans outside Africa, as well as the extinction of all other human species. Humans also spread to the Australian continent and the Americas for the first time. And then the late Pleistocene from around 50,000 years ago on was the mark by the extinction of most large terrestrial animals outside of Africa. An extinction event otherwise unprecedented in the geological record due to its extreme size bias. Let me see. Oh, so okay, here we go. The severe climatic changes during the Ice Age had major impacts on the fauna and flora. With each advance of the ice, large areas of the continents became depopulated and plants and animals retreating southwards in front of the advancing glacier faced tremendous stress. The most severe stress resulted from drastic climatic changes, reduced living space, and curtailed food supply. A major extinction event of large mammals, megafauna, and it began in the late Pleistocene and continued to the Holocene. The Neanderthals also became extinct during this period. At the end of the last ice age, cold-blooded animals, small mammals like wood mice, migratory birds, and swifter animals like white-tailed deer had replaced the megafauna and migrated north. And then the evolution of anatomic and modern humans took place during the Pleistocene. At the beginning of the Pleistocene, Paranthropus species were still present, as well as early human ancestors. But during the lower Paleolithic, they disappeared. And the only hominin species found in fossilid records is Homo erectus. for much of the Pleistocene. Acheulean lithics appear along with Homo erectus, some 1.8 million years ago, replacing the more primitive Odoan industry used by Australopithecus garhi and by the earliest species of Homo. The Middle Paleolithic saw more varied speciation within Homo, including the appearance of Homo sapiens about 300,000 years ago. Artifacts associated with modern human behavior are ambiguously attested starting 40,000, 50,000 years ago. And then according to mitochondrial timing techniques, modern humans migrated from Africa after the Rift glaciation in the Middle Paleolithic during the Eemian stage, spreading all over the ice-free world during the late Pleistocene. It said that a 2005 study posited that humans in this migration interbred with archaic humans, with archaic human forms already outside of Africa by the late Pleistocene, incorporating archaic human genetic material into the modern human gene pool. But that's what they were saying about the about stone tools. Oh, okay. Now what I did, I clicked over to that Paranthropus. Now the Paranthropus is a genus. It's a rank above species. of extinct hominin, which contain two widely accepted species. Paranthropus robustus is a species of robust Australopithecine from the early and possibly middle Pleistocene of the cradle of humankind, South Africa. And Paranthropus bosi is a species of Australopithecine from the early Pleistocene of East Africa. Holotype species, let me see, discovered by paleontologists. Now, according to the dating process, they live between approximately 2.9 and 1.2 million years ago, from the end of the Pliocene to the middle Pleistocene. See, they were still alive too. When you talking, they were from the end of the Pliocene to the middle Pleistocene. They were still alive. Paranthropus is characterized by robust skulls with a prominent gorilla-like sagittal crest along the midline, which suggests strong chewing muscles and broad herbivorous teeth used for grinding. However, they would likely prefer soft food over tough and hard food. And saying, okay, that's why I came on down here. Okay, they are associated with bone tools and contested as the earliest evidence of fire use. They typically inhabited woodlands and coexisted with some early human species, namely Australopithecus africanus, Homo habilis, that's an archaic human, and Homo erectus. They were preyed upon by the large carnivores of the time, specifically crocodiles, leopards, saber-toothed cats, and hyenas. And so, But like I said, that's the evolutionary process. I was reading them, just browsing, But we talking about this, what is Paranthropus. Paranthropus. That's that evolution, that evolution. And again, they say they estimate approximately around about 2.9, 1.2 million years ago. But let me see here. So like I said, we talking about prehistory, prehistoric religion, and whatever, Got into the science, and then we're gonna come back and gonna continue what we're gonna continue with prehistoric religion. And so prehistory. That's what the PhD is showing you. When you talk about prehistory, and you're dealing with all these archaic humans and all this Paranthropus and all this, it was an evolutionary process. And when it comes to that point, to that topic about religion, as you can see, it took years, million years, thousands of years before human beings actually had the cognition for that. Yeah, get ready to end. I'm gonna get ready to end today's video. Again, my name is Eric D. Johnson, also on BrightShine. I live right here in the city of Memphis. It's in the county ship in the state of Tennessee. Thank my family, my support for your continued courage support. I'm still working on my idea and everything. Got to give people time, and because that's what we talking about. Time. Time is important. That's what we talking about. Time. You gotta have cognition. And thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God, for all the blessings God provides us all with. Continue to pray about wars that are being fought. There be peace. Pray about natural disasters that continue to affect us all. That we can save people's lives and things of this nature. And they continue to pray. And go, like I said, on my next video, we're going to pick right back up where we left off today on prehistoric religion, prehistory, the earth sciences, you know what I'm saying? And we're just going to continue on because it's going to be indefinite anyway, so it ain't, you know. But until next time, you take care of yourself. Wish each and every one of you the very best.